New official language, sign language, is now officially recognized in the country. It's the 12th one. It's taken a long time to get here. The president saying this recognition will improve access to education and economic opportunities as well. Let's get some reaction of the milestone. I'm joined by a very well-known sign language activist, a personal friend of mine as well, Andiswa Gebashe, and her interpreter, Hlengiwe Msingali, making time this morning. An activist, Andy, is the right word, because you and I had this discussion, I want to say probably 5-6 years ago,
yes,
maybe longer, and here we are. How are you feeling?
I'm excited. I'm excited that we finally have a language that has an official status. I mean, it has been our fight for many, many years. I mean, some people, unfortunately, are not here to celebrate with us, have passed on. You know, that's how long the struggle has been. Organizations like your DEFSA, your SANDA, and other organizations that don't even exist anymore, who've been fighting for this language. We have your Pan South African Language Board, who has really championed the language in being an official language.
And can we just get some clarity on the technicals around this? Because I was asked this question. So you've got, right now, it's SASL, South African Sign Language. That's fairly obvious. Then you've got ASL.
Yes.
How different are we when compared to other sign language, I want to say styles or languages? I think language is the correct word. How different are we?
So it's like spoken languages. There are different spoken languages. We have South Africa, we have sign languages, and every country has its own sign language, and it's different, like spoken language. There's isiZulu, there's isiXhosa, English, Afrikaans. So it is also different, and it stands on its own. So in South Africa, we have South African Sign Language.
How easy is it to learn something like this, now that it is an official language, hopefully in schools? I mean, even this little box that we have on the bottom right-hand side as well.
We've been talking about this box.
Because we have. For those who don't know, please use the analogy, because I know you've done interviews before. Use the analogy that you've given me a couple of times about how important that box is for the deaf community.
So to have that block that small, which is one of the things that we're advocating for, is having a volume on 2. So a deaf person has to go closely to the screen to hear what is being said. They can hear me, they can see me. Surely we can find a way with our technical directors and our producers.
So it's like the volume button.
Yes, it's a volume button. If you are listening to something and the volume is on 2 or 3, you almost have to bring your ear closer so that you can hear what is being said. So my father right now is actually squinting to the screen to find out what I'm saying about his language. So there are a lot of unlearning that we have to do as a hearing community, because we think we're helping, you know, but
it's like it's a favor.
Fact, yes, it's a favor. We're just ticking a box, you know. But with South African Sign Language becoming an official language, we can actually now advise and how to provide accessibility better, especially in the media space.
I want to talk about that media space for a moment as well, because basically what that is make the volume higher. Just make the volume higher. Turn the volume up for those who are hard of hearing or those who are actually deaf. But I want to talk about the media space itself, because now, of course, we're all paying attention to it. You and I have done interviews before. Now it's official. Talk to me about sign language in the world of production, in filmmaking, because you've got a company that specializes, of course, you specialize in this, but also even getting involved in movies now. It's becoming, you can't reach to hit me, so I hope I don't insult you, but it's becoming more mainstream.
Yes, it is becoming more mainstream. Netflix, there is a movie called Inamba Number, Josie Gold, that has the first deaf actor from the continent, and he is only 22, Mxolisi Nodom from South Africa, and he's the first deaf guy to be on an international platform, you know, where people were willing to say, okay, let's do it, let's try it. But in terms of treatment as well, we're still learning. Even with ads today, Wimpy has an ad I was happy to be part of, behind the scenes, BP. So people are really coming to, they're warming up to actually having a deaf person on screen, because we have so many deaf people who are talented, who can act, who can present, who can do so many arts. But what we need to worry, because most production house, they still want to have an Andiswa, someone who can speak and hear and sign.
Right.
But there are deaf people who can do it. And especially if something is pre-recorded, you don't need an Andiswa to do it, or a hearing person. A deaf person can do it. We've tried it before. You can do it through feed. There are so many ways of doing it, which is why Indie Science Production exists, so that we can work with other production houses in how to treat sign language on camera. Because sometimes if you're shooting, some people would only want to shoot the hands or only the face, without understanding that it's a combo, it goes together.
Right.
You can't only do a shot on the hands only without the face.
Yeah, because it's like you're not finishing the sentence.
Exactly.
I think is another way you described it as well. Can we talk about the education side of this as well? Because apart from you being an activist and you're now a consultant as well, heavens, you've done so well since you and I last saw each other with And I Sign. That's very clever. Andy and I Sign. It's very clever, by the way.
Yes.
You're now a consultant, it seems, with all these productions. Can we talk education?
Yes.
And I know that I was going to bring up this example where the deaf community were made fools of years ago when there was an interpreter, I think it was Barack Obama, and how horribly wrong that went.
Yes.
How do we make sure that someone who's interested in this, or perhaps wants to get formal training in this, gets it done properly with the proper accreditation and certification, so we don't end up with whatever that was all those years ago? How do we do that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to wait for government. There is a council that sits with Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. It's there. It just needs to work harder so that we can have regulations. We still don't have regulation for sign language interpreters. And knowing sign language, South African Sign Language, does not make you an interpreter. So you have people who go and learn sign language basic skills of level 1, level 2, and then we see them on our tallies. We see them in conferences interpreting. Just last year, I think it was October, in Thohoyandou, Minister of Police was addressing the people. The interpreter that was standing there was saying gibberish. And he's a former teacher at his deaf school for over 20 years. So you can just see what were kids being taught, and to still have someone like that interpreting after the Nelson Mandela saga. So we just need stricter regulations, and to make the actual profession something that can be regulated, because at the moment it's not regulated. It's free for all. And
because I'm going to throw you under the bus for I think the third time today now, is that something, apart from you being an activist and a consultant for the production sector as well, is that something you could lead on? If somebody in government was watching this, they go, all right, Andy, I was seeing you and Gareth talk, come to my office, take me through this. What does it look like? You could do that for them.
I could do that. I mean, we also have Pan South African Language Board, which protects and promotes all languages. And I happen to sit on the sign language sub-board. So we do try to help corporate, other government departments. But we just need some willingness, because we can talk until we're green. If the people who are making decisions are not willing to listen, we're going to come back here next year and say, yes, it was an official language, but what have we achieved? Because right now is to take responsibility. What does it mean? You know, does it mean that if I'm watching news in the morning as a deaf person, I have access? Does it mean that as a deaf person, I can walk to any government office or any sector and be able to use my language as an official language? What does this mean? What are the responsibility that the government is going to take, that corporate is going to take? So we're celebrating, yes, but I think we should focus more on what next. What are the steps to take so that a deaf person can walk anywhere and be able to use their official language? In schools, is it going to be part of a subject at any school besides?
Will the teachers have the training to teach the subject?
I mean, we still have a problem of teachers who cannot sign fluently in deaf schools teaching kids. So it's just a lot of, what are we doing? Are we including sign language while people are studying towards being teachers, towards being a nurse, being a doctor, being a police? Are we including sign language at that level so that I can walk in and sign? Today, if a person gets raped or assault, God forbid, if they walk today in any police station in South Africa, they can't get help. How are they going to report?
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's a terrifying thought, actually.
I mean, in hospitals, people get misdiagnosis because nobody can sign. You have to get an interpreter or a family member who can help you. What are we doing? And we just need to find measures on, okay, fine, we've made it an official language, but what's next?
What does that actually mean?
What does it mean?
What does it actually mean?
What are the responsibilities?
Just as I start saying goodbye to you very quickly, where can people get hold of you? Because I think we need to try and keep this going while the conversation's there. It's very trendy, no offense, it's very cool, but we can use that. We can use that to further. We can do that.
So how do people... we're doing a music festival in September in sign language.
There we go. This is the kind of thing that's coming up.
Yes.
So where can people follow you, find you, all the rest? Where do they do that?
On Instagram, it is @Andy_signs, ANDI_signs. And on Facebook, it's Andiswa Gebashe. I do answer my DMs.
You do. I love the way that you automatically went into sign language as you spell. Most people spell your name. You went straight into sign, didn't you?
If I have to spell something, I have to sign it.
How do I sign thank you?
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you,
you.
Hlengiwe, for joining us this morning. Congratulations. It's been a long fight, but it looks like Andiswa Gebashe and interpreter Hlengiwe Msingali have finally gotten, along with many other people in the deaf community, have finally gotten this right, the 12th official language for South Africa as well. It should be a lot more official than that, but my hugest thanks to Andiswa, South African sign language activist, and Hlengiwe Msingali this morning. Are you interested in learning sign language? Go follow Andy on social media. I'm sure she can point you in the right direction to get credible education and a credible syllabus to do that. All right, if you just